Good evening. My name is David, and this evening I am running a game of Last Fleet. Last Fleet is a an upcoming game by Josh Fox of Black Armada Publishing, and it is a powered by the Apocalypse game. So a game based on sort of the work of Vincent and Mackay Baker on Apocalypse World and numerous games since. Um, and it's a game about being part of the last human fleet, escaping from an implacable alien foe in the depths of space. Um, it's heavily influenced by Battlestar Galactica, that hopefully will give people an idea of what this game is about. We're playing this game this evening as part of the Gauntlet Hangouts, which is the Gauntlet's an online role-playing game community focusing on indie games from story games through to OSR and pretty much everything in between. We've got a website that's at gauntlet-rpg.com. There's all sorts of stuff we do there, including podcasts, a monthly gaming zine, forums where you can chat with us, and the Hangouts calendar itself where you can sign up to playing games like this one. I think that's it for the sort of introduction stuff. So last time we met, we spent the session developing the world and the characters that inhabit it. Today we're going to get into the game proper. I'm just going to, before we get started, just briefly highlight our safety tools that we will be using this evening. So Last Fleet is as I said, it's sort of based on Battlestar Galactica, that sort of theme. As such, it's about war. It's about fighting an implacable foe who are bent on destroying the entirety of the human race. As such, there's always a possibility that we'll get into some potentially uncomfortable topics. In order to kind of deal with this in as like safe and enjoyable a way as possible, there's a couple of safety tools we'll be using. First and foremost, we have had a discussion last time about any subject matter we want to avoid. We've done that as part of our Lines and Veils discussion. All of my players will be able to see in our character keeper there is a tab called Lines and Veils, where we have made a note of things that the lines, which are the things we want to avoid entirely. We won't feature them as part of the story, and veils, which are things we will can happen in the story, but we don't want to like focus on them in detail. They'll happen off camera, will fade to black, that sort of thing. Something we'll just sort of more gloss over. There's also a few topics in there that that we've marked between us, just to, if we want to introduce them into a scene, just to stop and take a brief moment out of character first to clarify that everyone's happy with bringing that in, where that's going to go, just so we don't kind of get surprised by anything too unpleasant. So those are our Lines and Veils. This is a living document, so if there is something you want to add to this as we go through, feel free to do so. We'll be using the X card, which I'm sure everyone's familiar with. The X card is basically just a way of stopping very quickly and removing some content from the game if we're not happy with it. That can either be because of the actual content itself, because it's like content you're not happy with, or it can just be stuff that you feel is like totally a bit off or whatever. That's also perfectly acceptable. It can invoke the X card by sort of doing the X sign with your hands, which I have an issue with at the minute because I've got a bar in front of me. But we can also just type in chat an X, or just say I'd like to X card that over mic. Any of those are fine as long as it brings it to our attention. When something's X carded, I might need to ask you to clarify what you're Xing, but I won't ask you to justify why you're doing that. We'll kind of leave that aside. We'll reconfigure the scene in a way that we can avoid that, and we'll carry on. And that's sort of how the X card works. We'll also be using the script change tool. This is essentially a tool that just lets us have a bit more fine control over the content of the game. So this you can think of as kind of your remote control commands. So The first and most important one is pause. If you want to pause a game, just call out pause. This is quite simply just we'll break from character for a moment. If we need to have a quick out of character discussion about stuff, if you want to say, I'm not sure, I'm not happy with where this scene's going, we'll have that discussion. It might be that you just want to take a couple of minutes away from the action. It might be that there's the doorbell goes and you have to go and answer it. Anything is fine. If you just need to call a pause, do so. Fast forward is used for kind of skipping over something. So this might be something like a veil, essentially. If you just want to say, okay, I don't want to have a big, in-depth, gory discussion of this surgery that's going on. Can we just skip to the point where they're recuperating afterwards? That's fine. It might also be if you just feel like a scene is kind of circling a bit and nothing much is happening, you just want to move on to the action. That's also perfectly fine and a good way of using it. Rewind is just a way of stepping back the action a minute. So you might, again, this might be used if you're not happy with the way the scene's going. You say, can we just rewind it to before this happened and take it in a different way because I don't like where the scene's going. Or it might just be, you go, actually, what I just said doesn't quite make sense like as much as I thought it did when I started saying I want to go back and just reiterate what I said, something in a different way. That's cool. And then the other one that I think is quite useful is frame by frame. If you can call frame by frame, if you want to go over scenes a bit more slowly. And what we'll do if we do that is we'll just check in with each other a bit more as we're going through the scene. This might be if we know we're going into a scene where there's the potential for some uncomfortable topics or whatever to come up, and we might just want to handle it with a bit more care. So that's frame by frame. Cool. So that's enough from me for the moment. What I'm going to do now is I'll ask each of my players to introduce themselves and then to introduce the character they'll be playing this evening. Tell us a little bit about them. Yeah, cool. So, as I said, my name is David. I use he, him pronouns, and I'll go through this in order of the character keeper. So, Diana, can I ask you to introduce yourself and your character first, please?
Hello, as I go by Diana Moon online, I use she, her pronouns. I am playing Lieutenant Soto, who uses she, they pronouns, and I believe, because it's been a couple of weeks now, Lieutenant is kind of the head-ish of this particular ship, the Black Horizon, or though she might kind of share it a little bit with Commander Elisa, and is kind of a hard head. Is more focused not necessarily on the rules, but like we got shit to do and we're gonna do it, and there's no messing around. Like this is serious business. What's going on? Kind of thing. But yeah, it's all for the betterment of keeping humanity safe.
Awesome, thank you. And yes, next is Leandro.
Hi, my name's Leandro. I use he and pronouns. For this series, I'm playing the aforementioned Commander Elisa Cascade, who uses she, they pronouns. She's a former gunnery officer for this fleet, but has ended up the acting commanding officer of the flagship, the Horizon Black. And she is kind of like an inverse to the aforementioned Lieutenant Soto in the sense that she's one who really tries to look out for everyone, often maybe to the detriment of the fleet as a whole. She's dogged by rumors of being soft for a military commander. She got this job in peacetime. Does she have the mettle to serve amidst constant war? And it's not like she doesn't nurse those doubts herself, but get on with the job, keep calm, etc., etc. She's doing her best. We'll see if her best is good enough.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And then we have Donna. If you'd like to introduce yourself, please, and your character.
Hello, my name is Donna. My pronouns are he, him. And today I will be playing Lieutenant Castor Parada, call sign Talos, who is a pilot, a military pilot, who has problems with all of the command staff really when it comes down to it, but spends a lot of time in the brig, but even more time on the Don Juan pleasure vessel that's part of the fleet.
Excellent. And yeah, that finally brings us to our last player for this evening, Zach.
Hey, I'm Zach. Go by he, him. Tonight I will be playing Porter Malik. Porter is he's the captain, I guess, of the Don Juan, which is a pleasure yacht here in the fleet. It has the casino, the nightlife, different ways to cool off, both above and below the table. He'd probably be called by his enemies. He'd be called the Cad, and probably by his friends a connoisseur of the finer things the fleet still has left. He is, despite his sort of extravagant and finer ways, he is considered a friend of some of the I guess the lower classes, as it were, on the ship, those that don't have voting rights right now. And he can be, he's a bit of the thorn in the side as some of the more traditional top-down captains in the Captain's Council. So I think that sums him up pretty good right now.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. So yeah, I will just do a very brief recap over the situation of the fleet as established last time. So we have, as Leandro mentioned, the capital ship of the fleet is the Horizon Black. This is an old, a very large, sort of super heavy civilian vessel that has been retrofitted into a sort of military vessel at the outset of the war. It was fitted with armor, weaponry, hangar bays for fighters, all of that sort of stuff. Things are still a bit ad hoc aboard the ship, but it is in general, it's the most heavily armed and armored ship remaining in the fleet. The technical command of the military aspect of the fleet is under Admiral Bullard, who is the highest-ranking survivor of the fleet aboard the Midnight Gale, which is a light cruiser. The civilian aspects of the fleet are commanded by essentially, as was mentioned, a council of different captains aboard all the civilian vessels. The most influential of the captains in the fleet is Tefa Rosson. They have the command of the Colorado, a large colony transport ship that contains the largest remaining civilian population aboard the fleet. They do not technically lead the council. The council is, egalitarian amongst captains, but they have a lot of sway due to their prominence within the fleet. So, as I say, the fleet is on the run after the war broke out between humanity aboard the planet Helm and its colonies, and a strange sort of insectile, robotic alien race who are known as the Mnemotics, or as they are more commonly referred to by the people of the fleet, the Roaches. These are strange biomechanical beings. They're often insectile in appearance, and they have large insectile spacecraft that they fly or inhabit, or possibly are. It's all a bit weird. They have powers over technology and can, in fact, sort of imitate technological devices. They have sort of shape-shifting abilities. They also have the ability to control and influence humans in some ways, which means that there are the potential for infiltrators aboard the ship, both in the form of technology and people. So that's kind of the high points, I think, of what we established last time. So as I said, the premise in Last Fleet is that the fleet is being hunted by these aliens. They do wish to destroy you, and it's up to you to try and survive basically for as long as you can, and potentially at some point in the future maybe find your way to safety. But that's very much the long-term thinking side of things. In terms of what we are doing as players, what we're interested in is looking at the characters that you will be playing, who make up the fleet, and look at the stresses that they are put under, how they deal with those, and how they cope with the pressure of being in a essentially a constant battle for survival. There's a couple of mechanical things I'm just going to talk over very briefly before we begin, because they're quite important how the game works. As I said, this is a Powered by the Apocalypse game, so I think all of you are familiar with at least some of those. So a lot of this is going to be quite straightforward in terms of what you're doing. In terms of, you'll just say what you're doing, and I'll pick up and when I think you've triggered a move and say, okay, I think you need to roll this now. Obviously, if you want to aim towards doing a particular move, you are always free to do so, and do call it out if you think you've triggered one and I haven't mentioned it. The sort of core feature of the game is there's a stat called pressure, or a track called pressure that you will all have for your characters. This represents the the stresses and the pressure that you've been put under up to this point. You will all be starting at a pressure rating of 2, which should already be marked on your character sheet. Pressure is so I'm just getting a bit of feedback from somebody. I might just try and sorry, that was just distracting me. I'm hearing myself reflected back. So yes, the whereas a pressure is it's marked up a bit like wounds or what have you in some other Powered by the Apocalypse games. Various moves can give you pressure. Failing rolls can result in me giving you pressure if it seems appropriate. Often things like injuries will be represented by you taking pressure. You also always have the opportunity to voluntarily take on a point of pressure to give you +1 to a roll. So do bear that in mind. That's like I said, something you can do that on any time you pick up and roll the dice. You can spend a point of pressure to add 1 to it, and you do that after you've rolled. So you can use it to bump yourself up to a success if you've just failed, or so on and so forth. The other thing that's important to know with pressure is that every time you mark a point of pressure, you also mark a point of XP. Obviously, the couple of points dealt with don't give you that XP, but other than that, every time you mark pressure, also mark XP. So that's sort of one of the core things there. You've got this pressure gauge. Once your pressure hits 5, you can no longer either lose or gain pressure. Your pressure will remain at 5. And this also means that you cannot take any action that would require you to take pressure or would give you pressure. The only way of getting rid of resetting your pressure once it hits 5 is by using one of your breaking point moves. You'll each have a little list of these with a checkbox next to each one of them. When you want to use one of those, you can tick it off and take the fictional action that move gives you. This will usually be something self-destructive. And then once you've done that, your pressure will reset back down to 2, and you can then continue to gain and lose pressure as before. There's also a couple of moves that interact with pressure. That are kind of core really to the flow of the game. These are you have one move called Reach Out. This is basically when you and another player have an intimate or emotional scene, and you kind of express something to them. The benefit to Reach Out is that on a successful roll, it will generally reduce pressure for both characters involved. Though it does require you to kind of make yourself vulnerable to that character. The other option you have for reducing your pressure is to act out. No, sorry, let loose. I'm confusing with something else. Yeah, you let loose, which is when you indulge in a vice or some other form of release. So it could be involving drink, drugs, sex, anything like that. The only thing to be aware of is that specifically to let loose, you have to indulge in it to abandon. It's having a little glass of sherry before bed is not letting loose. Summing back a few shots down in the bar is more what we're talking about. Let loose lets you, as I said, lets you reduce your pressure, though on a failed roll it tends to escalate matters in some way as you go too far. And finally, there's another one that fits into those, sort of an interpersonal move of call someone on their shit, which is basically a move for you to kind of let someone know what you think of them and what you want them to do. And those are the sort of 3 core interpersonal moves that you sort of will flow throughout the different scenes. There's then different kind of more procedural moves for when you're when you're fighting against the enemy or investigating things and all that sort of stuff, which will come up as they come up in play. But it's just wanted to sort of introduce those key concepts to you first. The other 2 things that kind of tie into that as well. You have relationships with other characters. I believe most of the player characters here have a relationship with each other, though not necessarily all of you. You can also have relationships with NPCs. The way relationships work is that generally you'll start at 1 in your relationship with somebody. That can go up, particularly by using the Reach Out move. And you can, in some situations, replace the stat that you're rolling something with your relationship stat. This is particularly in things like Reach Out and call someone on their shit. You can usually default down to your relationship with them instead of your stat if you wish. The other important thing to note with relationships is that if you have a relationship score with somebody and that person dies or betrays you or is in some other way kind of irreparably split from your character, you take an amount of pressure equal to your relationship score with that character. So yeah, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. And finally, there are some factions, which actually I'll quickly make a note of in the character keeper. We discussed them last time, but I don't think we actually have names for them all yet, but I'll just write their kind of brief description. you can have a positive or negative relationship with a faction as well. This is referred to as loyalty. Most of you will not start with any ratings within these factions, and given the amount of time we're playing, the factions may not come into it all that much. We'll see. The exception to that is that our civilian will have a starting relationship of one with one of those factions. Cool. I think that's all my intro blurb. So what we're going to do to kick things off is if you click into the fleet tab of the Character Keeper, you'll see there's a couple of different tracks in here as well. Two of these are, again, they're a bit like your pressure gauge. Fleet harm and alarm. Fleet harm represents the physical well-being of the fleet. Alarm represents the kind of emotional well-being of the fleet. These again both start at 2. They can go up as a result of unfortunate things happening to the ship, to the fleet. When fleet harm reaches 5, then something or someone is destroyed. So a ship may be destroyed, an important NPC may be killed. Something bad will happen to the fleet. When alarm reaches 5, then an NPC will take some form of drastic action that impacts on the fleet as a response to what's going on. So those two are there. The third track for your fleet stats is your momentum. This will go up and down with the result of some moves. It's basically represents the overall morale and luck, for want of a better word, of the fleet. Your momentum will be starting at -1, and Leandro, as Commander Cascade, is our highest ranking player character. It will be down to you to start off the session this evening by rolling with momentum to see what sort of situation the fleet is in at the outset.
Did you not see how well I was rolling yesterday, David? Do you really want to do this?
I mean, I can't possibly, comment on.
Well, let's just say I earned a lot of XP yesterday. Let's just say that. All right, I do the roll. That's with a -1, right?
With a -1, that's correct. Yeah.
Cool. And the streak continues. That's a 5.
A 5. Yes.
Oh,
so, there is so the text for so this move is on the basic move sheet, and it says when there's a prolonged lull in the action where the fleet is, for the moment at least, safe, neither under attack nor dealing with a direct and immediate threat, ranking leader rolls momentum. So on a 6-, a threat materializes without warning, and all you can do is damage limitation. So what we will words, everything. So yeah, what I will start off with is we'll get that kind of slice of life as we'll see what each of you is doing kind of at a random point during a normal day, such as normal or indeed day are concepts that have any meaning in your current situation. So I think you have been fleeing from the fleet for some time, from the Mneumotic fleet for some time now, probably in terms of days and weeks rather than months, but the fleet has been pursuing you quite doggedly. You've just made yet another jump to hyperspace, and as you pop out into another, well, largely empty system in space, there's maybe a kind of asteroid belt that that's kind of dragged you out of hyperspace as you begin to plot your next course. For the moment, it certainly seems you have a moment's respite. Nothing is particularly pinging on the radars as you come in. There's nothing here waiting for you. You don't know how long it will take for the Mneumotic fleet to catch up with you. But yeah, let's just have a little snapshot of what each of you is currently up to. We will start, I think. Yeah, no, I'll just go through in character keeper order once again. Let's see. What's Lieutenant Soto up to?
Generally what she's always up to, which is like being at the helm, kind of similar to the picture, looking at different stats and everything. Technically, they're off duty, but they don't do very much else otherwise, and they're there. You're muted.
So I am. Thank you. Yes, excellent. So yeah, I think you're there, and currently all readings seem to be as expected. Though we may come back to you in a moment. So yeah, Commander Cascade. What's your sort of status at the moment? Do you think?
If we've just come out of warp, then she's gonna be at the CIC, for sure. I don't think she sits during warp before or after because it's very important. So she's just kind of standing in the middle of it, kind of like I imagine like the CIC of the Horizon Back is like, it's a civilian ship, so it's not it's not designed for military use. So she's kind of the captain sort of position is kind of in the middle, and she would prefer if it at the back so she can see everyone. So instead, she has to turn and talk to people behind her or around her. But yeah, I think when we see her, it's a flurry of it's a lot of like checking up on people, just like how's their status here, how is everyone accounted for, population trackers, how's that going, is there any signs? And I think immediately when it comes to jump, she kind of gives the order to like immediately start scanning the area for any anomalies, hostiles. She's in commander mode basically. And you're muted.
Sure, I think that sounds good. Awesome. So, Talos, where are you when we locate you aboard the fleet or around the fleet? I don't know if you've got a hardware mute on, Donna.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
It was working so well earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, we heard you earlier. What's... Oh dear.
Well done as doing fiddling with tech. Zach, if you want to let us know where where we see Porter.
Yeah, Porter is on the Don Juan, and I believe he's kind of been facilitating this little game where all of the ship captains, if they would like to participate, can bet on the exact time that the enemy fleet will catch up to us, and whatever captain is closer, their crew gets a complimentary beverage and some house chips when they come to visit the casino. So he's trying to, a little bit of gallows humor to kind of pass the time for some of the civilians. So I believe he's kind of organizing that, having his pit boss or whatever, like taking calls right now and writing down bets and everything.
And I imagine there's like a big countdown display sort of on one of those, like
definitely,
a bit more flash, with a bit more glitz and glamour around it than the sort of standard
yeah, exactly.
reader.
So yeah, he's kind of facilitating that and saying hello to the folks that are currently trying to pass the time in his little corner of the fleet.
Brilliant, thank you. Donna, are we No, still can't hear anything. Do you want to try rejoining and seeing if
Okay.
Open. Really don't like when like people use their connection in Jitsi because their image turns gray. It looks like they're part of an Oscar memorial video.
So I'm gonna say that Unuan does have a bet on that board, but it's under a different name.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone is welcome to submit their bets.
Hey, yeah.
Moment of truth.
Okay. Any better?
Yep, can you find now?
Okay. Chrome and Jitsi are being friends again. Okay.
Excellent.
Chrome got jealous.
Yeah. It's like, how dare you use Firefox? Okay, sorry. So, yes, what am I up to? I think part of the routine with the fleet jumping is to send out a combat air patrol. So obviously it's the sign of the CAG's utter trust and love in Castor that she puts him on this duty. So yeah, launched out of a tube at Mach 7 to put out a scan and just patrol the fleet to keep it safe. So it's boring until it's terribly exciting. That's the brilliant thing about a cap.
Brilliant, thank you. So yeah, I think what I will have first. Sorry, I'm just familiarizing myself with the basic moves again. So yeah, I think we will see. So, Lieutenant Soto, you said you were checking sort of readouts and displays and stuff in the bridge. Is there anything in particular that you're looking for?
I think I'm usually always on the lookout for planets that could have resources for us, because I believe we always just have just enough, and it would be nice to get above just enough. So
Yeah.
that would be kind of a little bit of my focus, since we seem to have had a good run so far. Like, it's still in the back of my mind. They're always on us, but like, just take advantage of this supposed breather we're having.
Yeah, no, that's great. So what I'm going to do is ask you to roll with Sharp to seek out something well hidden.
Okay. Do-do. So that's a 4. Because I don't have any extra stats in Sharp.
That's so. I will at this point just briefly mention the options that you have for assisting other people. When you support or interfere with another character's actions, you mark 1 pressure and roll either warm to support them or sharp to interfere with them. Or if you're getting an NPC to support you, you roll your relationship with them. And then basically you can spend hold from that to do things to assist that person. Either like, so for instance, granting them a +1, giving them an opportunity, or taking a negative consequence of their move onto you. Those are the different things you can do when you're supporting someone. You also, as I said, you also have the option to spend a point of pressure yourself to give yourself +1 to a roll. And the final option, and this one is particularly useful when things like space combat are going on, is when you wait helplessly as others tackle a major problem. Once another player has rolled the dice, you can say what you're doing to sort of cope, but this isn't in a way that helps, and it's usually, well, you're nowhere involved in the situation. And you gain 2 pressure, you spend 2 pressure and give them a +1 to their roll. So those are kind of the options you have to boost there. However, given that you got a 4, I think it's likely that this one is going to go to a failure.
Yeah.
So I think.
I mean, I am off duty technically, so maybe I'm not as sharp as I usually am. So I won't admit that, of course.
Perhaps. So you're at the one of the sensor readouts, and there's a lot of as far as you can tell, things are quiet in the system. The meteor field is, or the asteroid field is not exactly interfering with the signals, but it's obviously that there's a lot of these giant floating rocks with varying amounts of metals and stuff in them, which obviously has an effect on your scanning. What you do get though is a reading that one of the that one of the sort of asteroid clusters is giving off quite high readings of a basically a kind of in a very hand wavy sci-fi sort of way, a sort of mineral that is very useful for fueling the ships. Basically, you have kind of the capacity to refine the minerals it has into a fuel that will run your ships. So yeah, you get that information. What do you do?
I immediately tell the commander. I'm like, Commander Cascade, I think over here, and I'll pull it. I'll do the whole like hand thing where I push it over virtually to Alyssa's like comm. Like, I think there's some mineral deposits here. This should be good for us.
This looks promising, Lieutenant Soto. Although I do recall you're not meant to be on duty at the moment. Do you mind if I ask what exactly you're doing? Scanning?
Yes, I had some time. There was no one assigned to this spot for this period of time, I figured you'd need an extra set of sharp eyes.
I'm not going to deny that your eyes aren't sharp, Lieutenant Soto, but we have shifts and rests for a reason. I do want to make sure that you're not. You're
And
not
if I
simply
wasn't here, we wouldn't have this resource to be found, and we would have just flown right past it.
That's quite an estimation of your abilities, Lieutenant Soto, which I've already said are not inconsiderable, but don't push it. At any rate, nevertheless, your findings seem sound. We'll send a scout ship to scan the area and see what we could dig up there. But, Lieutenant Soto, as I said, rest shifts are there for a reason. Get as much as you can before. Well, you never know.
Well, if you'd rather me rest, fine. I'll go and rest. Though you probably should let other people know that they shouldn't be going to the Don Juan to do their rest if you really want us to be in tip-top form. And with that, I turn around and walk out.
And my face curdles a bit at the mention of the Don Juan. I think so. Talos is already out in formation, right?
That's right. Yep.
So I think I'll just transfer it's not even like a voice command. I think I'll just transfer instructions. So hey, go scout this area. Looks interesting, and I'll send doing I'll get someone. I'm the commander. I don't have to do this myself. Although she probably would, but decorum, whatever. She'll get someone to send in coordinates to Talos to check out this area.
Which really doesn't seem like the best thing to do with your combat air patrol. But hey, I'm following orders, right? Like I always do.
There's no combat right now. Come on, you're already out there.
Okay. So I'm assuming it's been passed through the proper channels, of course, because the commander is a stickler for such niceties. So I will swing a long loop to save on fuel and take a ride past this asteroid or whatever to take a look. I presume maybe we can shoot a buoy, so some kind of a sensors array into close proximity to take a look see.
Yes, you certainly can. So yeah, as you take a long, like I said, you take this long curve around the asteroids, and I said this isn't. We're not talking. Well, I mean, I suppose it's like all those things in like relativistic terms and stuff. Actually, these things probably the asteroids probably are moving quite fast, but in the way that space works, they're not. They don't seem to be moving all that much. This isn't like a kind of a storm of asteroids. It's a sort of a fairly stable formation of asteroids, and you swing around and deploy the sensor buoy out, and it begins its course towards these particular cluster of asteroids that you've had marked out to you. However, as you are coming around, the sort of proximity alerts will start flashing up on your console as you see an odd distortion in space, and where previously it looked like there was nothing, you notice there are several kind of mneumotic craft. They appear to be kind of light, sort of fighter scale craft. They have almost like a scorpion-like look to them. They have that sort of they're sort of pronged and sleek, going back into a kind of raised, almost like a scorpion tail, but you know that it's from experience, it's a kind of a highly flexible one of these sort of Gauss guns that they use. And yes, several of these uncloak behind you. And even as you're reacting to it, they will start to there'll be that whine of the Gauss guns sort of firing up, and you'll start hurling projectiles towards you and your wing. What do you do?
So I think I'm instantly kind of turning the fighter pilot routine of on a dime, and just putting on all thrusters to get to put some distance between them and me, and then it's kind of flat radio voice, Rise and Black, this is Talos, noting some bogeys in this Iraq you sent me to investigate. I suggest you launch the alert fighters. As I'm pressed into my crash couch in the cockpit.
Brilliant. Cool. So what I'm going to do is ask you to make a what is it called? I'm going to ask you to shake off the threat of the of these hidden fighters, which is a roll with hard.
Okay. So that's a 0 for hard, and I rolled an 8.
Okay, that's an 8. So on a hit, you shake it off. On a 7 to 9, I get to choose one from the list. You can, if you wish, spend some spend pressure to bump that up, or if someone else wants to give you an aid of some description, they can. But they are not required to. Does anyone wish to do anything in response to that?
You're muted, Diana.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm used to just using this as my mute. So, I was just saying that unfortunately I'm in the hallway, so I don't notice this happening quite yet, so I can't help out. Otherwise, I would. But someone wanted me to go to bed.
You are, yeah. For some reason, you're off duty, right? I mean, who needs you?
You're off duty. Like, what are you doing there? Anyway, I'll gladly help.
Some kind of gunnery officer in control of the flag vessel.
Yeah, I think definitely I'll help, and I think what that looks like is I think as soon as you said bogey spotted, like I think and you start making your sarcastic comments. I don't think I didn't hear those. Elisa's already kind of like moved to like not yell, but like just maybe start barking commands at like the to send in the other fighter squadrons, or like the ones kind of like, I guess the ones who can definitely aid your position. So let's see. I'm gonna roll with warm because I have a relationship with Talos. That's a +1, right? Is that a relationship? Sorry, I just want to be sure. David, you're muted.
I think that just lets you sub in the relationship instead. I don't think it gives you a bonus.
Okay. I already have one.
I will double check.
Yes, I think that's the case. Yeah, I already have a 1 in warm, so I don't need to do that. But I'm gonna mark pressure. So just get me 1 XP, and yes, I'm gonna trust the dice rollers, which have not been my friend in the past 2 days.
Oh, you only need to mark pressure off. Oh no, sorry, I'm lying. You do need to mark pressure to make the roll. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna make a roll. Ooh, That is an 11.
Nice. So yeah, on the 10 plus, you get to hold 2. You can spend those hold to give +1 to a move that you're supporting, to create an opportunity for the person you're supporting, or to take one of the negative consequences of their move onto yourself instead of them.
So can I choose one of those options twice?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
because
I might spend a pressure to get +1 on myself, and then we can double up, and you can save some of those holds for something interesting.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'll spend 1 to give you a +1, and so if you spend a pressure, that'll bump you up to a 10, and then I don't know. You tell me what you do because you're in full control. Because that's what the 10 plus. I'm gonna shake it off. So you tell me what to do, and then maybe I'll spend. Yeah, I'll keep that hold for later.
Yeah. So I think the burn is, kind of maybe directly perpendicular to the line of those Gauss weapons, and they need to turn to make a bead on me. And really what I'm doing is I'm kind of just drawing them into the line of, either our own ship guns, or maybe even that flight of fighters that you're sending over. So I'm just kind of running, turning tail and running, but drawing them into a much bigger fight that maybe they're less able to win.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, and they will be swooping after you, and there'll be the sort of ripples through space into these high velocity bolts fly past, but you're able to dodge away from them, as are your wingmen for now as well. And yeah, that is I think at this point there will have been kind of the general alert sounded across the fleet. So how do we see Porter reacting to the alert?
Yeah, so I think I don't think Porter was expecting quite the quick reappearance, and he's kind of like, at first I think his true reaction is, oh shit, but he quickly, because he has a part to play here in what is his theater here, he kind of quickly looks around to make sure no one saw his true expression, and he kind of puts on this sort of wry grin, and he goes and he looks around over to his pit boss and everyone there. It's like, oh, looks like no one's winning that prize today, folks. And then and he can see folks like shaking their heads, and to deal with it, he goes, well, you know what this means though, space roaches. And I think on the Don Juan, kind of like at back when the Roman villas, they'd have those little pools where they'd have like shellfish and mollusks breeding and whatnot. I think on the Don Juan there's this little pond, and they've been breeding like the equivalent of mussels or whatever, and we call them roaches. And whenever roaches show up, we'll shoot an oyster, take a shot of liquor. So he's like trying to get his people to like keep the conviviality up, and he's like, all right, let's roll them out, space roaches, baby.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you. That's awesome.
I'm like halfway back to my quarters, and as soon as like the alarms go off, I go right back to get back to the con, because obviously they're gonna need some help.
Of course. Yeah. So yes, you will run back in, and obviously we've got the kind of the alert lights are flashing throughout the ship, and as you run back onto the bridge.
I leave for 5 minutes, and what happens?
I think Elise is in the midst of saying something, and then without even looking at you, says yes, because we all know the safety of the ship is in your hands, Lieutenant Soto. Now, would you kindly take position?
And she just looks smug and just goes and takes position. Like, exactly. If it wasn't for me.
Right. Yeah, if it wasn't for you, who never mind. I'm not saying all this, but like, so I think once kind of like in position, I think Alisa like turns on like a fleet-wide broadcast, and I think this is definitely going to be heard by everyone, including people in the fighter planes and the scout planes. And I think it goes. This is Commander Elisa Cascade, acting captain of the Horizon Black. As you're all well aware, the alarm has gone off, and we have come into contact with the pneumatics. Mneumotic. I'm looking at this word. Mnemonics. Oh, there we go. Sorry, that's out of character. I was getting confused by this word. With a mnemonics party, and are currently being engaged. This has been the first attack in quite some time, so I would like to reiterate that our main priority is to preserve the fleet. Our main priority is to save lives and to ensure that we survive. We will take care of this enemy as quickly as we can, but our main goal is always to ensure that everyone here survives to the next day. You all have your assignments. You all know what to do amidst this crisis. Though you may have your orders, know that one order is prioritized over everything else, and that is to ensure the safety of everyone aboard this fleet. Commander Cascade out. And I'm rolling. Well, it's not really a very inspiring speech. It's far too gloomy when I'm rolling that move.
Yeah, that is fair. That is fair. I expected that to be the case. But yeah, go ahead and roll with warm.
Yeah, of course I'm going to take the move that makes me do a speech. All right, so warm. And this is one of those moves that's marked that says I can't take pressure for this. It's marked with that little asterisk, so that's a 5.
Oh dear, yeah, that's not ideal.
It's really not.
I guess I'm willing to help.
Are you willing?
Yeah. So, I'm willing to take 2 pressure for that to help you. And I'm not as eloquent as Leandro, especially when I'm hopped up on medicines right now. So my equivalent of a speech of like backup speech is the more militaristic angle of it, and just like and specifically speaking to the pilots that are rolling out along with Talos. Like, I know you can do this. It's just the same as before. We got this. Let's get home, kind of thing.
Cool. So
yeah.
you can you just need to mark 1 pressure to start with, and then roll with warm,
Which I don't have. Let's hope I roll better.
You can sub in my relationship.
9. Yay.
Yeah, so that's true. You can use your relationship with the captain, with the commander, I should say, if you wish, which would
+1, right?
So when I do that, does anything change in our relationship, or?
No, I don't believe so. Sorry, I'm. Bear with me. I'm still getting the hang of this myself. Relationships.
That's only when you do stuff. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, when you have a relationship with another character, you can add its level to your role in place of the usual stat when you make support, interfere, negotiate, or call them on their shit. So,
okay, so then that would bump that up to a 10 then.
Excellent, which will give you 2 hold. And yeah, like I said, I'm happy for you to spend both of those hold to the one roll. It seems a fair use.
Yeah. It's also to like prove my point that yeah, you need me.
Okay, so that bumps me up to 7. Actually, I made a mistake. I actually rolled a 6, not a 5. So you only had to spend one hold.
Oh, cool. So
it
you
up.
still have one hold to floating about then, Soto, which you can spend to assist the commander at a later date.
Okay.
So on a hit, choose 2. Everyone who takes your words into their heart takes +1 forward. Take an action you're calling for. Either that or everyone who takes your words into their heart erases 1 pressure. You know what? I'm gonna choose everyone who takes your words into their heart. So anyone who believes in what I say gets to erase 1 pressure. That's on you, not me. And I think I am going to. Yeah, the thing is, Elise is kind of pushy. So everyone who takes same thing. Everyone takes their words in their heart. You're gonna take a +1 forward into taking action that I'm calling for.
Brilliant. That's cool.
And on the 79, I have to mark a pressure.
Yeah,
because everyone's looking to you to be the strong one. Well, not everyone, because some people think they're the strong one.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to call a quick 5-minute break now. And then we will come back in. I will do a quick overview on how space battles work because one is about to happen. Then we will run with that. So yeah, see you all back in 5 minutes.
Cool.
Cool. Welcome back, everyone. Right. Yes. The way this looks, I said the Talos and is leading this group of enemy fighters back towards your lines, where your gun batteries and other fights are starting to deal with them. As this is happening, though, there is a long insectile shape warps in out of hyperspace, and you will recognize it as it's not like a huge battleship, but it is a significant it's a significant sort of cruiser of some description that the Mnemotics use. They're sort of scout ships, essentially, for the main fleet. At the moment, it appears to be on its own, but they do carry on them another contingent of fighters, and they are armed with, some serious long-range weaponry, which, they possibly couldn't. This ship alone couldn't go toe-to-toe necessarily with the Black Horizon, but it's more than capable of picking off civilian vessels with ease. So we're going to go into a space battle now. So the way that these battles work is we decide at the outset of the battle how this is how what the outcome of the battle is going to be. So generally, this involves picking which side is going to win, with the caveat that it's nearly always going to be the enemy, unless the circumstances are particularly well suited to your side. And I think that is the case here. It's probable that you could stand and fight against this one enemy vessel, but you're also fairly certain that it will not be one vessel for long. This is, as I said, it's kind of essentially one of the scouting vessels for the larger Mnemotic fleet. It may take once they're able to report back on your location, and in fact, your location may have already been reported on by the fighters that you've encountered. The rest of the fleet will be able to turn up here in force. But you will have the opportunity to escape. So the way we do this is I'm going to set up a doom clock on the fleet tab. This will, and I'll just call this battle. And the way this works essentially is each time sort of a significant event takes place in the fiction, the doom clock will probably advance. Each time the doom clock advances, your fleet will take a point of harm. There are a couple of ways of sort of avoiding this, but that is the general state of affairs. This represents essentially your the fleet taking losses in combat against the fleet of the enemy. So what I'm going to ask, and this I'll just ask to you sort of as players, what do you think that you need to achieve to get out of this battle in one piece?
Well, it seems like some of our best fighters are already out there and sort of engaged. So it seems like we need to get those birds home.
I think damaging the other ship just even a fraction would help, because it'll at least slow them down a bit.
Yeah, it might mean make it less easy for them to immediately follow you.
Yeah.
Which will hopefully allow you to put yourself a bit more distance before the fleet catches up with you again. Yeah, that sounds good. So yeah, I think those are probably the two sort of main things that we want to that we want to be focusing on getting done in this battle. As I say, yeah, to yeah, to essentially make a strike against this scout frigate thing, and then get your fighters back aboard the ship, and then you'll be able to jump out. And obviously, the whole spinning up hyperdrives and such will be going on in the background of this. So the way that this works. Or well, not the way it works as such, but the sort of the structure, I guess. So this is this will obviously we'll probably be focusing here on Talos, as they have the most to do in ship to ship combat, but we will also be bringing in particularly the officers. Will have the opportunity to support, and I will be popping in occasionally to get an idea of what's going on back with the civilians with Porter. I'll just call out a couple of moves here that are particularly relevant. So obviously I've already mentioned, and we've already seen in action the support moves. I will point out, just as a mechanical thing, it was fine when it happened before, because that was essentially using the mechanic anyway. So generally speaking, like in this sort of situation, the battle situation, the only way you can really support fighters out in space is if you are an officer and you have sort of command of the weaponry of the fleet, which obviously you did before, so that's fine. That's part of the officer move. You also officers will also get to gain some hold with the on the when your people go into battle move, which is on that basic move sheet as well, which will let you spend hold to do a couple of actions to support the flow of the battle in general, as well as specific actions on behalf of the of any pilots out in the field. The other action that you have, and this is one that might be of use to Porter particularly, is, again, I mentioned it before, but I'll just mention it again, is when you wait helplessly as others tackle a major problem, you can spend two. You can show us what you're doing to cope, and spend 2 pressure to give them a +1 to their roll. So this is the kind of those shots to back on the fleet sort of thing that we will get. I will go through and ask each of the officers. So I will start with Soto. So Soto, do you have a good view of the battlefield and direct comms with your people?
I believe I do, yes.
Excellent. Are your people trained and prepared for this sort of conflict?
Of course they are.
Yep, that's good. And the third one is that you knew the details of the battle in advance. I'm going to say this one. I'm definitely going to say that you do not. No, this was specifically an ambush. So that's cool. And yes, so Cascade, the same questions to you. Do you have a good view of the battlefield and direct comms with your people?
Yeah, definitely. I'm in CIC. I see all ish. I can't look behind me, but
Excellent.
battles happening in front of me, so
Yeah.
I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah, you can't see the faces I'm making at you.
I can feel you making the faces.
And are your people trained and prepared for this sort of conflict?
Yeah, otherwise I wouldn't be making that speech. I wouldn't be lying to everyone that they weren't trained for this, or that they were.
Perfect. And once again, yeah, did you know the details of battle in advance? For which the answer is no, you did not.
God. Yeah, I wonder why.
Right, what you will get is so yeah, I said you'll each get 2 hold that you can spend at any point during this upcoming battle. You can spend a point for that to support somebody by ordering your forces to assist them, which you basically do. I think you don't have to spend the pressure for that. Is what I assume that means. You can order your forces to redeploy and erase a segment on the battle clock. You can order a swift reaction to a problem and negate 1 fleet harm as it is inflicted. Or you can say you're already in position to capitalize on an opportunity or neutralize a problem. Actually, you won't have access to that one because that you only have access to if you knew the details of the battle in advance. So we can ignore that 4th option. So as I said, I've started up the battle clock, and on the fleet tab. And and as I said, basically, what this it's a 4-stage clock essentially. Each time it fills up, you will be taking a point of fleet harm. When it reaches 4, the rest of the fleet will, or at least more of the enemy fleet will appear in system, and things will get considerably more difficult for you at that point. Just to make everyone aware of sort of what's going on. So, with that said, we will patch in back into the action with Talos as you receive. We've just had the inspiring speech over your comms aboard your ship. You have lured the fighters out, and the first rank of the fighters is taking a pounding from the guns that are starting to open up from the from aboard the horizon, and you can see the first of the of the reinforcements launching from the ship to kind of help you out. But you will also notice that whilst several of the fighters are sort of still on your tail, a couple of them have peeled off and are starting to head in towards towards one of the civilian ships. What do you do?
So I think in the initial moment after the speech, I'll be opening like a private channel to my wingman to say, is that the G-forces or your eye rolling that's giving you a headache? I think it's a bit of both. And then I think it'll be the commander does care about us. He wants us all to survive, to retire back on the farm. But I think we're going to have to save these sluggish civilian vessels from these enemy fighters that are scurrying over them. So I think we're not going to look after ourselves. We're going to follow them in and try to pick them off.
Brilliant. Yeah. So
So I don't know if that's me taking his message to heart or just completely defying his orders or somewhere in between.
So I think because you are, it was, correct me if I'm wrong, but Commander Cascade's orders were to protect the vessels of the fleet as a whole, I believe, weren't they?
Yeah, and I think that does extend to definitely we'll keep the enemy at bay, but like don't go running half cocked into doing anything ridiculous. Fleet's the priority. But if you're doing this specifically to be like, oh, God, Commander's such a drag, that could be a defying that seems defiant enough. That's up to you, David.
I mean, I mean, I don't want to be like saying it's both. Like, I am defying the spirit of his message or I'm defying the letter of his message while obeying the spirit of it.
I feel in this situation, because you are prioritizing the safety of the civilian vessels, I think that you're following the spirit of the order, so you will get the +1 from that.
Okay.
But the even if you're throwing shade whilst doing so, but yes, so you'll get a +1 on that. And I think what you're probably doing here is bear with me. So still getting used to all the names of the moves. I think you're holding off a determined assault as you're trying to drive off these fighters that are going in for the civilian vessels.
Okay.
So that's a roll with raw, and as I said, you will be getting a +1 to this from the commander's speech.
And was I getting a +1 forward from the shaking off the threat from earlier as well? Because this is my next roll, but I'm not sure if I can take +2 forward.
Yes, you absolutely can. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I'd forgotten about that. Yeah.
Okay, so that's
I'm terrible at tracking +1 forwards. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so roll an 8, 9, 10, 11.
Perfect. So on a 10 up, on a on hold off determined assault, you hold them off. Yeah, it's great. It's that simple. You hold them off, drive them away, and or keep a target safe. Yeah, how does that look? You come in. I said there's probably like a 3 of them like flying in formation towards this. I think it's actually they're going for the Sparrowhawk, which is a lighter merchant vessel, tends to fly more on the outside of the fleet because it's a bit more maneuverable and nippy than some of the other ships commanded by Dear Weiss.
Yeah, so I think I guess they're like wolves trying to get around the edge of the flock, and I think we are just lighting the afterburners and just coming straight up their tailpipe to get up to kind of minimum distance with our old-fashioned slug throwers, and then just ripping apart a couple of them, and then the other few maybe take some common sense to the bank and get out of Dodge.
Yeah. So yeah, that's perfect. You break up this initial assault on them. While this is going on, there's a bit of a dogfight. Basically, as you sort of peeled off to go after them, some of the other ships from the fleet came in and engaged the fighters that were pursuing you. Though at this point, the enemy frigate has had enough time to sort of spool up its weapons, and a few more fighters are launching from it and heading your way. A few shots fire out across the fleet, more for effect at the moment than serious harm, but they are pressing you at this point. So I'm going to mark the first tick in the doom clock. You will take 1 fleet harm. Unless either of the officers wish to spend one of their hold to prevent that.
Yeah, I have 3 holds, so I'll take one. I'll use one of them.
Sure thing. Yeah, go ahead. So what does Soto do to kind of keep the minimize the destruction as the sort of first wave of sort of shelling starts to target the fleet?
Well, since I had been looking at like the maps of this area initially, looking for resources, I already technically have the layout of like what was it, comets or meteoroids?
Asteroids, yeah,
Asteroids.
yeah.
Thank you. So like just telling the pilots like where they can hide from the like what would be a big enough asteroid to like gain cover from and such. Because obviously their immediate attention is the bullets, so they're not necessarily seeing beyond that and everything.
Yeah, excellent. That sounds great. So yeah, the sort of the fighters are you've got the upper hand currently over the enemy fighters. You're able to kind of push them off, take they're pushing them back, and this opens up a potential avenue of attack on the frigate itself. Talos, what are you doing?
You coming back to me?
Yep.
Okay. Are we equipped to do like an attack run or on the frigate, or is sweeping the place of fighters really our main job?
No, you can definitely. You've got sort of missiles, torpedoes, whatever. You could certainly inflict some damage on the thing. Again, going sort of very much with the sort of Battlestar Galactica thing on this. It's like the fighters are well armed enough. They can certainly, a fighter can just mince a civilian vessel with little resistance. Military targets are obviously harder, but you can still, in a fight, you can still inflict significant harm on them, particularly against like individual systems and stuff like that. So yeah.
So I think we'll do an attack run maybe on their sensors or their like hyperdrive, something like that. That'll really affect their ability to follow us.
Yeah, so I think they've probably I think the drives maybe would be a good target. They're by necessity they are exposed, and probably more so than their sensor arrays are. So yeah, I'll have you. In fact, I'll have you roll the move, and then we'll see what that looks like. So this will be when you strike a tough or well-defended target, roll with Roar again. On a hit, you overcome the target's defenses. On a 79, you have to choose one off the list.
Okay, that is a 7 total with a +1. So, I don't think there's much chance of getting up to a 10 with that.
You could, in theory, mark 3 pressure to take that up to a 10.
Yeah, I think I'll take my licks.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. Awesome. So yeah, how does that look? I think this is going to be quite simply what you will take fire in the process. So we'll have a second a roll in a sec to see you weather serious harm. But tell us how this looks as you come in. And as I said, you will be able to like do some serious damage to its drives as you make this assault.
Yeah, so I think this is like kind of rain danger close. This is like getting in very, very close to the enemy frigate. In terms of meters to just try to avoid the protective fighter screen, and then like once we get past the rear end of the frigate, just doing like a Newtonian physics turn to fire a missile straight into the drive, the hyperdrive.
Yeah, and there's a big like explosion out as your ordnance connects with the drive, but as you're doing this, and as you're kind of breaking away from the ship, you see for a moment it looks almost like missiles sort of shoot out from the ship towards you, but you see that they're actually, it's almost like harpoons. They still seem to be attached by like long cables back to the ship itself, and they actually seem to be weaving after you, and one of these long spikes will puncture will strike into the side of your ship, and I will ask you here to roll to weather harm.
Okay, so that's plus hard, which is just flat. It's an 8.
An 8, okay. On 79, it hits you hard. So I choose 2 of these. I think that you so I think that you will mark 1 pressure for me, and again, remember you will mark XP every time you mark pressure, and I think that you, as this this, as I said, this as it comes through, it's actually almost like a tendril or a tentacle, but made entirely of metal, and it punches a hole through into the cockpit, narrowly misses you, and it smashes into your like flight console, essentially. You can sort of see it almost like rearing back to strike again, but by this point you've just pulled far enough away that it's at the limit of its extension, and it's sort of pulled back out of the ship, and you get away from it. But your sensor screens are gone. That you're going to have to rely purely on flying by eye from this point onwards. And I think you've got that moment of disorientation while you kind of go into a bit of a spin, and that's it takes you a moment to reorient yourself. So I think I'm just going to call for another quick cutaway to see what's how is Porter reacting now to they're now kind of on board the ship. There are now, there's ordnance flying past, possibly, your ship may take small amounts of like dramatic damage at this point, but nothing serious has happened yet. But how is Porter looking?
Yeah, so Porter, after he made sure there's the alcohol and the space muscles are flowing, he as a captain, he does like to show up on the flight deck or of the Don Juan to just, if anyone has to ask him, what should we do, Captain, he can just be like, carry on. But he's getting into the I think just as he's walking into the lift or whatever to go up to the crew deck, the shelling starts, and he gets into the lift, and it closes, and he kind of like he looks down, and he sees his hand is shaking, and he kind of reaches into one of his pockets, and he pulls out a little something, and he just kind of like, and then as the door opens to the crew, he kind of like, there's, it's a mirrored lift or whatever, and he looks at himself, and he takes a deep breath, and he kind of screws up his courage, and kind of walks off the ship, and walks out of the lift, and as he does, he goes, "We've found ourselves in quite a predicament, boys and girls." And he walks on and begins to take his seat and patch in. I think the Council of Captains like to keep an open channel to discuss what's happening. So he cues into that and kind of winks and nods to all of his flight crew.
And I think we see Tafer's son is obviously on this the group call.
Yes.
And says, "Well, glad you could join us, Captain Malik. We are preparing to jump on the command of the Navy. I trust your people have everything in hand."
Oh, Tefa, everything is just hunky-dory here on the Don Juan. Our crew is secure and in good spirits and well rested and ready to make the jump. Should we put a bet on who reaches the next sector first?
That hardly seems necessary.
Fair enough, Tefa. Just trying to keep it a little light.
Brilliant. Cool. And I will be marking now the next box on the doom clock. Once again, this will inflict a point of fleet harm unless someone wishes to prevent that.
Yeah, I'll do that this time. What's the harm look like?
So yeah, I think at this point, the frigate is obviously been scuttled isn't the word I want to use, but it's obviously been the main drives have been taken out. It is slowing down, but it does manage to maneuver itself around at this point, almost like the crew know that they are there's no point in trying to care for their own salvation at this stage, so they just turn full on to the fleet, so that they can bring all of their guns to bear, and they start leveling a hail of Gauss fire towards the fleet, quite clearly trying to target the weaker civilian ships. They're just essentially trying to inflict as many casualties as they can.
Yeah, I think through like coordination with folks who are meant to be on shift, I'm sure Lieutenant Soto is taking care of the fighter pilots. I'm sure they're doing a great job right now. I'm sure fire pilots are doing okay. Sorry, Diana.
Of course, they've been trained to do what they need to do under pressure.
Yeah. So while Lieutenant Soto is taking care of the fire pilots, I think Commander Cascade has been taking care of the fleet
formation. They listen to me better, anyways.
God damn it. Yeah. So that's being taken care of. I think Commander Cascade has been liaising to ensure fleet formation is kind of intact, and so she and like everyone else that's working on her end do notice like the frigate is positioning. Actually, I think while she's busy like coordinating, like, all right, we need to prepare for this jump, I think actually it's her aide, Sergeant Lagrange, who notices like frigate is making like one last ditch attempt, and she gets basically Commander Cascade gets her to coordinate the fleets to ensure that formation breaks up so that the attack will just barely miss any of the civilian ships that it was aiming for. So there may be some singe marks on some of the civilian ships, but they more or less get out intact.
Yeah, and we'll probably get a shot of some the odd ship having a kind of one of these big almost like bolts just flying through it, and maybe an unfortunate crewman gets impaled sort of thing, and it's quite unpleasant. But in general, there's little there's no significant damage to any of the ships. It's mostly mostly cosmetic at this stage. And I think what I'm going to do now is we're going to go back to Talos. So the frigate has been not quite neutralized, but it won't be following you at this stage. The ships are preparing to jump. All that is required is for the fighters to return home. You are at a bit of a disadvantage now because you do not have your sensors to rely on. As I said, you are flying sort of by eye. So I probably will have you. We'll. So, what are you going to do?
Yeah. So I think after I disengage from the frigate, I'm going to try to make a beeline for our ship. As best I can in the darkness of space, use my Mark I eyeball to spot the landing pad or however we get ourselves back to safety, and let the CAG know, or let the landing officer know that I'll be coming in really pretty rough and ready, and have the fire extinguisher on call, please.
Yeah, sure thing. So I think I will have you make one last roll to shake off a threat. This will basically be to get through the last vestiges of the enemy fighters back to safety. It's if your ship weren't as damaged as it is, you'd probably be able to evade them fairly easily. But because you have taken that damage, I think I will make you make that one last roll just to see how it goes. So again, that's with hard.
Yeah. That is an 8.
That's an 8. Yep, certainly. So on the 7 to 9, I get to choose off the list. You can, if you wish, mark pressure to avoid that. Or if someone wishes to assist you, they can.
I technically I have 2 holds left. So if I understood the...
So what you can use a hold to essentially make a support roll to assist. To assist with Talos. So yeah, you can go ahead and do that. That's a roll with Warm or with your relationship with Talos.
I believe we have a relationship, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because I have
it's probably still at 1 at the moment, but yeah.
Yeah. So okay. Oh shit! No, I rolled a 3, so that only makes it a 4.
Okay, so I think what happens is you've received this communication back from Talos that he's flying in without sensors, and you go to kind of assist him and guide him in. But as you sort of go to patch back into him, you just get the buzz, and in your cockpit, Talos, you'll see that as kind of the flickering communicator light just again goes dead, as well as it looks like your system is just starting to fritz out completely. And if Soto can mark me another pressure, please, from that.
Yes.
So I could mark 2 more pressure to get myself up to a 10, and that would put me at 5, and then I would pick one of those nice options off the list. So I think we should see how we should kick the tires on this mechanic, right?
Indeed.
So as everything kind of goes dead in the cockpit, you know, I'm just going back to whatever Mark I terrible ancient fighter that I went into training, and just, you know, flying by the seat of my pants and just trusting what I can see in front of me, and marking that pressure and just pulling some kind of a textbook pilot walks away, fighter less lucky kind of thing.
Yeah, that's cool. Yes, so you'll, and as you're sort of almost, I imagine at the moment, your ship sort of comes skidding to a halt on the hangar bay. The order will go out for the fleet to jump, and the fleet will get away as the frigate continues to sort of spin out of control, or drift out of control in space, and you go into hyperspace. And a short while later, the ship will pop out again, and it's quiet again when you get to the other side, and remains so. And I think, you know, we get that sort of thing where you manage to make a couple more jumps in safety, and you're now at the point where you are reasonably sure that for the moment, there are no further threats to the fleet. And yeah, I think I would like to see the aftermath of this, and I think I will start off by coming back in on the bridge of the Black Horizon, and I think the as like the fleet comes down off of alert, and the things settle down to a more normal again, as normal as things get these days. Sergeant Lagrange will come up to you, Cascade, holding a data pad, and she'll say, "Sir, we received a low priority communication shortly before the jump commenced," and she will hold out the data pad to you. It was a communication from the scouting boy. The fighters dropped.
I think I'll take the data pad, and as I can like start keying it in, I just say like, how's the latest assessment on standing of the fleet, Sergeant?
No significant damage, sir. Some a few casualties, and she'll begin kind of listing off the damage report. It is, as I said, it is fairly, you know, there has been some damage to some ships, but overall the actual casualties are quite low, because you said you didn't suffer any actual fleet harm, so you actually came out of it not as bad as you could have done.
Yeah, Cascade will still kind of like wince at hearing the word casualties. She really needs to get used to this sort of thing, but she's still not there. I think as Sergeant Lagrange is talking about that, I think I'm looking at the data pad and seeing what the communique was about.
Yes, it is it's an up close scan of the asteroids that the boy was sent to investigate, and it's basically just reporting back that the asteroids are essentially formed of rock and inert minerals, absolutely nothing of value in them whatsoever.
So I think I look at that, and then as Sergeant Lagrange is like finishing up, I give her back her data pad and say like, okay, I think I've seen enough. Can you call on Lieutenant Soto to meet me at my quarters? It's a priority. I'm sure she needs, well, if she's not too busy, I suppose.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think we'll roll straight in with that. So yeah, Lagrange will come and communicate the commander's message to you, Soto.
Yeah, I think at this point, like when we had gotten out of warp and everything, I was talking to the CAG to like make sure to reprimand Talos for such like crazy landing and getting his ship so messed up, because he could do better than that. And getting a little surprised at the message from Lagrange, and I'm like, oh, he's such a stickler for the. I'm right here. I like mutter. And not having no idea, obviously, is like fine. And then like this, I think I pinged to Porter, like I'm typing. I'm pretty sure I was close on the bet, and before before meeting Elisa or Cascade in their quarters or their ready room.
Cool. And I think we'll see, as you're heading off towards the quarters, we'll also see. Need to remind myself of her name again. Captain Rusco, or Harpy by her call name, the CAG, will kind of be heading down sort of towards the lift that leads down to the flight bay. But in the meantime, we will get the view as Porter receives this message from Soto.
Yeah, he's going to. So as the message comes in, there is some celebratory music playing in the flight deck of the Don Juan, and there is a bottle. Probably a few bottles being passed around now that we're safely jumped away, and he gets the ping as he's like finishing up a joke, and he sees it and he just kind of smiles and laughs, and he goes Union, and he types in and he says something like fair enough, come on over. We've got a new little performance planned for this evening. If you'd like to be the first look, and he's gonna send that off, and he puts his communicator away, and he turns to he gets one of his assistants on the horn. He goes, "Another successful jump. You know what that means? Send my dear cousin Commander Cascade a cigar and one of those some of those chocolates that they like." I think that's one of his things. I don't know, and I don't think Porter knows at all whether the commander actually enjoys the cigars, but he just keeps sending them anyways. So he does that, and he starts to he's heading out of the flight deck, maybe to head back to his room to freshen up a bit. I think you're muted.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. I just started talking. Yes. So cool. And then I think, I think we will see Soto and Cascade in Commander Cascade's rooms.
So as soon as
Yeah.
like the doors close behind, I just like lean against it and go, "Are you gonna really reprimand me for being there while not on shift?"
I think Commander Cascade's quarters are they're not like the captain's cabin here in this ship, because that, again, this was a civilian ship, and that one was far too big for her, so she took one of like the just like, I don't know, first mate offices, and so I think there is I don't know much about the details other than there's probably like a window looking out, but it's shuttered right now because it's one of the presenting targets, and there is like, just piled in the corner. There's like boxes of cigars that are just in the corner. Like, at least it doesn't smoke. However, there is like an open box of chocolates on her desk. The Porter managed to guess what kind of chocolate she liked, so she's not going to say no to that. And I think Commander Cascade is standing kind of behind her desk, and she's kind of like looking at her data pad, and she says, "No, I'm not here to reprimand you, Lieutenant Soto. Don't worry about that. I just need to ask a few questions."
She rolls her eyes and just like nods, like, "Okay."
So, when you made that initial scan, what exactly did you think you were seeing?
What I think I was seeing, I know what I was seeing. It was an asteroid with this rich mineral. I really want to say the lithium crystals, but because I'm a nerd like that. With this rich mineral that we don't tend to find out here, and that will help us with our fueling. I mean, I was hoping for food, to be honest, but beggars can't be choosers.
Not exactly, no. Although, and she tosses a gaze at the open box of chocolates. Some people. She starts muttering something, but then she just keys into the pad and kind of holds it up and says, "Well, according to the buoy that the pilot sent out before the initial attack, there is absolutely nothing of worth in those asteroids."
That's impossible. There was something there. I would never have you sent out anybody for nothing. Even as bored as I'm sure Talos was, just, guarding the ship.
Talos did very well at that sortie, as reckless as he tends to be. But this is concerning, Lieutenant Soto. This could mean that the Mnemotics have figured out some way to scramble our scanners, even someone as talented as you.
How do you
I
know
think
it wasn't the buoy that was scrambled? I mean, we don't know how long the mnemonics were there before they decided to show themselves. You're just assuming that it was human error. And at this point, like, I'm like strutting towards you, like, the hell.
I think Commander Cascade is standing her ground. She's kind of like just looking at you sternly and says, "Lieutenant Soto, if sorry, I'm trying to figure out how she'll say this because I just realized my argument doesn't make sense. Other way around. Either if the pilot's buoy was scrambled to show absolutely nothing, why would the pneumatics bother doing that in the first place? After all, an asteroid full of minerals is already a good enough bait Why scramble to make it look otherwise once the attack has happened?
To cause this, of course. You did doubt your senior officers? I mean, we've been pretty good at invading them for this long. They have to be, if they're smart enough, they'll be trying other tactics. And if we had the one up on them, I would certainly be trying tactics on them, but barely know shit all from them.
Are you calling out the commander on her shit?
Yes. I forgot that was a move. I was just talking.
Well, we said doubt. You doubt your senior officers. That is totally calling her on her shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. So yeah, to call someone on their shit, then you roll with again, either you can roll with hard or with your relationship with them, if you so wish.
I mean, it's both a 1, so
cool.
either
Yeah.
way, yeah. Let's see. So
Yeah, you
that's
can
6.
mark
So
pressure
that's yeah. So that's a 7 total.
Okay. So when you call someone the shit roll hard, on a hit, tell them what their problem is and what they need to do to convince you otherwise. On a 7 to 9. So you basically, so just passing the move. So so basically, if they you either have to the options you have, Cascade, are that you sort of do what they want from you, to do that, and or you can like openly and forcefully refuse and suffer the consequences, which in this case, this will be
Bickering back and forth.
Emotions or moral compass, they mark pressure. If you play in their relationship, they reduce the relationship by 1 and mark pressure. On a 7, but because you got a 7 to 9, you can also instead openly admit you're right. Openly admit that Soto is right. Try to placate Soto by giving them something that you think they want, or basically call them back on their own shit in response. I hope that made sense.
Those are some choices. Could you remind me like what their problem is and what I need to do to convince you otherwise?
What I think your problem is, or what my problem is?
Yeah, what your problem is.
So yes, what Soto, you are telling telling Cascade what you think their problem is and what they would need to do to convince you that is not the case.
I think their problem is they try too hard to prove that they're deserving of this captaincy, basically, because they're trying too hard, they're making it worse. So in this case, like trying too hard to like reprimand me for something that obviously was not my fault. A way to placate it. What would be a good rule? What would she? Admit that technically Soto in some areas has more experience.
Sure thing.
Okay.
Not all areas, because Soto does know, obviously.
Okay, I think I know how Commander Cascade respond to this. I think she kind of like keeps her chin up and says, Lieutenant Soto, you misunderstand me when I said that this could be the result of some Mneumotic scramber technology messing up our diagnostics. I was being polite to you. The other option I would have gone for is to imply that you were incompetent at your job and that you failed. So you made a misreading and you led our pilots into an ambush. I'm calling your shit out. Calling on your shit.
Yes.
And this time I'm using my relationship because my heart is a 0.
Yeah.
And relationship with you is a 1. And don't worry, I keep missing rolls. I've been missing rolls all day. This could turn out really well for you. Okay, that's a 7. Just barely made it there.
So technically, this could go back and forth if we want.
It could just keep going until someone makes a
The
miss
whole
or a
episode
10
is us
bucks.
just bickering at each other. Okay, so
I mean, you can choose to like, let's see. I'm playing on your. I guess we're playing on our. I'm playing on our relationship, kind
Mhm.
of.
Okay, yeah.
I think that basically means because you used the relationship to make the roll with, you do count as doing that essentially.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
I think
yeah.
yeah, I think that's always like over my head, that whole incident that had happened that you had forget. So even if you're not overt about it, like it almost feels like you're always referencing it. So I'll like just make a face and like straighten up my uniform. And instead of responding to acknowledge it, but I technically am, I'm like, permission to take some time off, since, as you stated, officers need this.
Permission granted.
If you happen to need my expertise, I'll be at the Don Juan. I turn around and just leave. And then that's when
I think
like finally see the message, and I'm like, I'll be there in as soon as I can.
so. You reduced your relationship by 1 with me, and mark pressure. Oh no.
Wait, what?
Which one? Oh, sorry.
If you played, you played. Cause I technically, that's the best. What I took it as openly admitting that
Oh,
you
okay.
were
Oh,
right.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did it without actually opening openly. 'Cause-
No, we both understand. We both
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because I don't like the idea that if I was wrong, I would never put people in harm's way like that. Well, I have 0 compromises, but that would be on my own. That was definitely not a 0 compromise thing to put Talos there.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I think we'll briefly go back to the deck of the Black Horizon. Oh, Horizon Black. Sorry, I keep getting that the wrong way around. Talos, you've been kind of assisted out of your cockpit. It probably has. You probably have basically had to wait in there for someone to turn up with a welding torch to cut the cockpit open, as various internals have been sort of fused together. But you are able to get out, and
so I think having gone to 5 pressure, I think it's I have to choose a breaking point, right?
You do, yeah. You don't have to do it like immediately. You can choose
Yeah.
to do that at whatever point suits you. But yes, you will need to do that before you can basically interact with pressure in any way.
I think, kind of relatively calm or appearing calm, sitting in the cockpit trapped until they, do their fire brigade trick and prise me out of there. And then as soon as my feet hit the deck, it'll be like off with the helmet, and the helmet like flies into the side of the hangar wall, and I'll be like shouting holy murder at Lieutenant fracking Soto, who sent me to this bloody rock. And then what? Oh yeah, let's like fry all of your comms gear when you're coming into land. Like, what the frack is going on with this? Like, are they trying to murder me? Is this purposefully because I beat them at cards last week? I don't understand. So everyone on deck knows that that Talos is blaming Soto for this crash.
And that's also the point. As kind of this tirade is coming on, and we sort of see, as the it gets louder, we kind of, the sort of camera pulls back a bit, so there's just kind of indistinct shouting and gesturing from Talos, as it's revealed. Kind of our POV at this point is Harpy, as she strides across the deck towards you, and she says, "Well, Talos, if we did want you dead, we would endeavor to do so in such a way that it didn't take one of our own craft out in quite so spectacular a fashion as you seem to have managed here."
Yes, sir. I guess the deck wasn't quite where I expected it to be, having had no sensors or comms with the landing officer.
Yes, indeed. You certainly put this through its paces. That will be... and she kind of gives a look to one of the landing crew, and says, I sincerely hope that the crew are able to salvage what remains of this craft. We really could do with as many fighters operational as possible. Do try not to show off next time you have to take one out, if we have one for you.
Take one out? Sorry, you mean taking out the frigates? Is that what I should be apologizing for, saving the fleet's ass single-handedly?
You do have a very high opinion of yourself, Lieutenant. And I'm not saying it's entirely misplaced, but you would do well to learn a little humility.
Sure. Do you have a manual on that? Because you're really good at that. Is there like some kind of one-on-one class you can put me into?
Perhaps a little time alone with your thoughts would be the best way of teaching you this lesson, Lieutenant.
Thank you, Captain. I think I'll find a shuttle to get, into the dark vastness of space. Maybe I'll go somewhere interesting. Somewhere I can enjoy my own company.
I think a brief spell in the brig will suffice, Lieutenant.
The brig? Is that has the Don Juan been renamed the brig? That's a pretty cool name. I must pass along my compliments to Captain Porter, because I know you're not putting me in the brig for flying my mission. and having a hard landing.
Yeah, I think you are definitely calling Harpy on her shit there.
Okay. That is plus hard, right? Okay.
Yeah,
Try
or your relationship with her, if you would.
Okay. Yeah. Why not? We'll use my existing relationship with her on that to roll. That's a 7, so an 8.
Yep. So I guess I will just clarify what you think their problem is. I think that's probably quite apparent. What would they need to do to convince you that otherwise to change their opinion of you?
So what would they need to do to
change your opinion of them, basically, or to convince you that what you think about them is not true, or not isn't true, but to address what your problem with it is.
Good job, Talos. Sorry you totaled a bird, but you're the most important thing, right? That's what my CAG should be saying to me, not like these things are more important than pilots.
Yeah, and I think she's actually going to sort of do that, or at least do that to an extent, and I think she's going to just sort of close her eyes and take a breath for a minute, and then step towards you and say, "Look, Talos, you need to rein in your temper. You are a damn good pilot. I am not selling you short on that, but you need to learn how to play with others nicely. The lieutenant wanted me to give you a dressing down, and I feel that I have upheld my side of that. Now, if I want you to keep I don't want a repeat of what you just said in this hangar. That goes no further, and I will make sure that it doesn't. And if anyone asks, I am sending you off on a duty to make up for your wanton disregard for the material entrusted to you. But you may take a trip over to the Don Juan. I think you need the break. And she doesn't go so far as to like pat you on the shoulder or something, but she does. I think actually she probably like. I think she's going to shake your hand and say, as a pilot, that was damn fine shooting. And she sort of gives you a nod and turns around to leave.
So I think a thoroughly confuzzled Talos will say, "Thank you, sir," and then maybe apologize to the crew chief for messing up the deck on his way out.
Sure thing. Perfect. So, and I think with that we will venture back to the Don Juan. Porter, would who would you like to have a scene with?
I think Yunin would probably be the first one over.
Certainly, yeah.
So I think we kind of have it established, like, since we we know each other,
Mhm.
that like I tend, since I don't like to advertise, I like coming to the Don Juan,
Mhm.
that I meet you in your private quarters first, and then like eventually head out that way. So like as soon as I come in, I just immediately start ranting
Yeah. Yeah. And
about the
I'm
commander.
already pouring something. Go, yeah. They sound like they really had it out for you.
I just can't believe they would just automatically assume I would give the wrong orders. Like, and I just like take the glass and just chug it.
It seems like they seem like they're in a little bit over their head, perhaps, and they're taking it out on who they have at hand. And I think they know you can take it, Yunin. You're as tough as they get around here.
I
But
know, it's just
yeah,
it's just sometimes it feels, you know how it is, how they feel about the colonists.
yes. Oh, trust me, I know. If Commander Cascade is really causing you problems, maybe I'll call up our great auntie, and they'll. And at this, he kind of cracks and laughs, and he said, "We'll have auntie tell cousin that they're being a bit rude."
Exactly.
Uh,
How? No damage here, I hope. You're okay?
and he kind of looks around. I don't. And the kind of the playfulness sort of leaves his face for a second, and Porter just, I don't know how much much longer I can keep this up. It's maybe I should get some sleep one of these nights or days, and maybe I should just take some time to myself. But it's hard keeping this act going.
I'm surprised you've kept it up this long, to be honest. I mean, I could always send you to the brig for a couple of days to give you an excuse to actually sleep. You do sleep, right?
Well, between the stuff I put in my nose and the stuff running through my head, I daydream. That's almost like sleeping.
Híjole.
And I think I'm reaching out to you.
I was going to say it did sound like that to me. So yes, you get to it's when you share a significant doubt or fear, hope or dream, failure or regret, or your feelings about them. And I think that definitely felt like that. And I think that I definitely feel that Soto was responding positively to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I rolled a 5 though.
It says
Was
either
that
way
with
increase your
relationship?
relationship.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I see. So yeah, so I was just having difficulty passing the move there. So yes, you do need to roll. So you with a 5. What you can do, you are still. Oh no, so you can't spend pressure on that move, unfortunately.
No.
Shoot.
So yeah, neither of you erase pressure, but your relationship with each other does go up by 1.
Okay.
So at least there's that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he takes what you say, and he's just like, do you think Commander Cascade's ever going to visit us over here on the Don Juan?
Honestly, I'd be shocked. But
that'd be for the best.
yes.
They keep saying we should meet sometime, but I don't know if I'm quite prepared for that.
I mean, from what I've gathered, you could just be yourself around them and they wouldn't know any better.
Yes, that's the rub, but isn't it?
I could always be there too. I tend to somehow get Cascade's attention most of the time. I don't know. Maybe they're in love with me.
Perhaps. Maybe they're worried you're going to you're next in line to be commander.
That too.
Commander Soto. That has a ring to it.
It does.
Imagine that.
I-
The majority of our fleet is military is composed of colonists, but not one of them has ever commanded a ship. Perhaps you'd be the first.
Yes, I'd be the first. And I just give you like a pointed look. But at least
What?
I got a chance to come here without having to make up some excuse. It's always good to see you and enjoy the depravity you are insistent
Oh,
on giving.
indeed. If there's what are we fleeing from, if not our responsibilities? Eh? Let's have a little bit of fun. And he and Porter he does a little bit of a spin. He goes, "I'm going to put on my face. Give me one moment, but I did tell you there's a new performance. It's a military appreciation night. I think you're going to really enjoy some of the dance numbers we've got arranged."
And I think I smile at that, and then but before you go put
Yeah.
on your face, I
Yeah.
come and give you like a hug, like because I don't think we see each other often enough.
No. A wry text here and there, I think. A message.
Yeah, just
Yeah. Yeah, and he kind of just and then we after the hug claps you on the shoulders and he goes, "Party."
yes, party.
I think if you wish, Soto, you can make that a reach out as well. So I feel like a hug from Soto. That feels like
That's
Mhm.
true.
a significant communication of how she feels towards somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I can use my relationship, which is now 2,
Yeah,
Yes.
so that makes it a 10.
Nice.
excellent. Which I believe means you both get to
Erase 1 pressure.
you both get to erase one pressure, and your relationship both goes up by 1 again.
Nice.
Fantastic. You better not betray me, Porter, ever.
Who, me? Never.
It's not going to last,
Excellent.
Leandra. We'll see.
Awesome. So, yeah, I think just keeping an eye on the time. I think what
I'm
I'm going
curious.
to do.
Would Talos go like looking for Porter or specifically?
I think. Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah,
I think for sure, but depending on how the scenes. I mean, like,
I
would know it. I would know. I know I know everyone that's on and off, so I would know he was there, and I would probably find him at some point.
I mean, so I guess what I will ask Porter, will your hospitality staff be instructed to let you know when Talos arrives?
Oh yeah, anyone. I think I've instructed them, like there to let me know anytime someone on the captain's council arrives, anytime someone of importance associated with them arrives, anytime anyone important in the military, and then also a few of my favorites, and of course Talos.
Yeah. So yes, you will get kind of a little beep on your communicator, and it will just literally be sort of a text that says Talos is here. He's in gate 1 or wherever. It's
mm-hmm. Excellent.
making an attack run on your whiskey supplies, I think.
Perfect. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Zen, if you want to just have a quick,
Oh,
so
sure.
they said we are getting, we're the last 15 minutes or so. So yeah, if you want to do
Okay.
just the last scene for Donna, and then then I think just cut away to a little
Sure.
vignette for the commander, and that'll probably be us for the evening, and then we'll pick things up again next time.
All right. Yeah. So I guess so I would know where you are. You're probably headed towards the bar, maybe the main bar at the casino, and I sort of slowly kind of sidle up next to you and lean back on the bar, and I'm just like, well, if it isn't our resident war hero keeping us all safe at night, how are you, Talos?
I mean, I can't comment on operational details of the fleet. You know that. You know that, Porter.
Oh, you are droll, aren't you? and I like kind of snap my fingers and point, and they like refill whatever you were drinking and bring over a couple more shots of something.
Well, it's nice to be in a place where that kind of thing is appreciated more than,
See, this is what I never understood. This is what I can't understand about you, Talos. You don't have the personality, I would say, of a good soldier. You have the heart of a romantic, of a poet, of someone that shouldn't be restrained by all of this rigmarole of the military.
True that. But in my book, actions can't, whatever the phrase is, I don't know. Actions can't, and I deliver.
Excellent. Well, we took a bit of a shelling here, a light shelling, and thank you very much for making sure that our skylights didn't become, anything more than just aesthetic, if you know what I mean. And yeah.
Yeah, well, going outside for a bit of a stroll isn't really advisable. That hard vacuum sucks,
And I think Porter kind of leans in closer and he goes, "You just let me know if there's anything. It is again military appreciation night here on the yacht, and if there's anything I can get you to make you feel more appreciated and valued, you just let me know. Food, drink, companionship, extra companionship."
Wow, okay. Because I'm wondering, how much do you really appreciate me or the military?
And I think at that Porter goes, and he snaps his fingers, and two people, probably whatever of various genders, arrive, and they're wearing like these like faux like engineer suits and with like these fake like tool belts, and he goes, and I think Porter just goes, yes, crew, could you make sure Talos here feels extremely appreciated? And I think Porter at that is going to blow you a kiss and wink and then kind of walk away.
So, yeah, I guess Talos is like, I was hoping for something a little bit more hands-on command from our captain, but I'll take some delegation.
Oh, gorgeous.
I mean, no relationship can be normal in this day and age, so it's all. I love it.
I guess more for the form than anything else, and because we've not seen it yet. Talos, would you like to roll to let loose?
Yes.
So, yeah. Now, I have a move, Explosive Decompression. When you let loose in a conspicuous and completely undisciplined way, on a hit, you can choose one extra option or keep the number of options, but let the GM decide. If you do either, erase one more pressure than usual. So, Yeah, I guess it's extremely untoward for an officer to do anything to engineers. An abuse of the professional relationship. But yeah, I mean, there's no superior officers hanging around nearby, so I don't mind. So let me roll. Okay, so I rolled a 9, and remind me, what am I rolling for that? For letting loose?
Raw.
Raw. Okay, so that is a 10.
Nice.
Nice.
So on a hit, everyone involved raises 1 pressure. On a 10 up, you choose one option from the list below and decide the details. Though, as I said, and forgive me, I have already forgotten what you said your move did, but I know it affects that in some way.
Yeah, so I get to choose one more option, or I get to let you choose it for me. And if I do either of those things, I erase extra pressure. So, I mean, I'm inclined to let you choose my poison on this move. You know, let's make things interesting, super interesting.
Excellent. So, I think, yeah. I think that you end up in the arms of someone you shouldn't. So I think that the way this looks, as I said, you've got these two, and they're in the you know, I definitely see this as being in the sort of slightly you know, campy, you know, sexy Halloween versions of you know, engineers outfits, and you know, you're having some drinks, and you know, they're basically plying you with drinks and so on and so forth. But I think we kind of cut to the scene later, where you know, the two you're sort of wrapped up with these two disrobed fake engineers. And also, now that you come to it, one very actual engineer who you actually recognize from the ship earlier, and you realize that you have actually kind of stepped over the line at this point a bit, yes. So I guess what that is sort of the time we see him. What is the last we see of Talos in this week's episode?
So I think, you know, maybe hanging his dress jacket over his shoulder, I think we see him kind of walking a little bit worse for wear out back towards the kind of landing shuttle, and maybe, like, you know, saluting up to wherever Porter is, you know, surveying his domain, on the way back out to catch his shuttle back to the Horizon Black.
Excellent, that's great. And yes, Leandro, as well, I'd just like to get one last closing shot on the commander, if that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I think we get a shot of, like, the commander kind of like at their quarters, and just kind of like looking at the data pad, showing like the, you know, the data the pilots got, and they kind of sigh and switch off the data pad, take it, and they move out of the quarters, and we follow a tracking shot of them as we follow them through the ship until finally we end up where she's always going to be, which is at the CIC. It's a bit of a skeleton staff at the moment. A lot of folks are decompressed. And I think she sees her aide-de-camp, Sergeant Lagrange, still hard at work, until Elisa kind of taps Lagrange, Francis, shoulder with her data pad, gives it back to her, and tells her to, like, take the night off. And I think we'll end with a shot of, like, Sergeant Lagrange leaving, and Commander Cascade coming back to, like, the pedestal, just making sure everything's okay.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So that's where we'll leave things for this evening. Thank you, everyone. It's been a fun session. I'm going to stop the recording now. But yeah, as I said, thanks very much.